If someone had told me 5 years ago that my own daughter would ban me from her medical school graduation after I sacrificed everything to pay for her education, I would have laughed in their face. But here I am, 61-year-old Michael Sullivan, sitting alone in my empty apartment while my daughter Dr. Rebecca Sullivan celebrates her achievement 200 miles away, surrounded by people who think her wealthy boyfriend's family paid for everything. I've been a single father since Rebecca was 8 years old. Her mother left us for a better life with her personal trainer, claiming she needed to find herself and that being a mother was too confining. She signed away her parental rights and disappeared to California, leaving me to raise our brilliant little girl on a mechanic's salary. I worked 2 jobs, days at the auto shop and evenings driving for a rideshare company, just to keep us afloat in our tiny 2-bedroom apartment. But Rebecca was special. Even as a child, she'd patch up her dolls with bandages, insisting she was making them better. She'd watch medical shows with wide-eyed fascination and announce that she was going to be a doctor someday. While other kids played video games, Rebecca studied. While they went to parties, she volunteered at the local hospital. "Dad, I'm going to be a doctor and take care of you when you're old," she'd tell me, and I believed her. With every fiber of my being. I never remarried. Every woman I dated seemed put off by my devotion to Rebecca's future, or they wanted me to choose between them and my daughter's dreams. The choice was always easy. Rebecca came first, always. By high school, Rebecca's grades were perfect, her MCAT scores stellar, and her acceptance letters started rolling in. That's when reality hit me like a freight train. Medical school tuition at her top choice, Johns Hopkins, was $60,000 per year. 4 years meant $240,000, not including living expenses, books, and equipment. I made $35,000 a year. The math was impossible. But I'd promised my daughter she could be anything she wanted to be. I'd spent 18 years telling her that hard work and dedication would pay off. I couldn't let her down now. "Dad, I got into Johns Hopkins." Rebecca burst through our apartment door, waving the acceptance letter, tears of joy streaming down her face. My heart soared and sank simultaneously. "That's incredible, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. I know the tuition is expensive, but I'll take out loans. I'll work part-time. I'll figure it out." Looking at her hopeful face, I made a decision that would define the next 4 years of my life. "Don't worry about the money, Rebecca. I'll handle it." "Dad, you can't afford." "I'll find a way. This is your dream, and I'm not letting anything stop you from achieving it." That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of bills, trying to perform financial miracles. I had $12,000 in savings, money I'd scraped together over 15 years for emergencies. Wasn't even close to enough. I took out a second mortgage on our tiny apartment, borrowing against the little equity I'd built up. I applied for every loan I could qualify for. I picked up a third job doing overnight security work. I sold my truck and bought a beat-up sedan. I canceled my health insurance and prayed I wouldn't get sick. By Rebecca's first semester, I was working 70 hours a week and sending her $65,000 to cover tuition, room, board, and expenses. Every month, I'd wire her $1,200 for living costs while I survived on canned soup and bologna sandwiches. "Dad, are you eating enough?" Rebecca would ask during our weekly phone calls. "Of course, sweetheart. I'm fine. Tell me about your anatomy class." I lost 30 pounds that first year, not from dieting but from skipping meals to make sure Rebecca had everything she needed. My co-workers noticed, but I brushed off their concerns. This was temporary. Once Rebecca became a doctor, she'd be able to take care of both of us. Halfway through Rebecca's second year, she started mentioning a classmate named Brandon Chen. Brandon's father was a cardiologist, his mother a plastic surgeon. They lived in a mansion in Beverly Hills and vacationed in Europe every summer. Brandon's family is so sophisticated, Dad. His parents speak 4 languages and they've traveled everywhere. They have season tickets to the symphony and they know all these important people. Something cold settled in my stomach. That's nice, dear. But remember where you come from. Remember who's making all this possible. Of course, Dad. I could never forget everything you've done for me. But slowly, things began to change. Rebecca's calls became less frequent. When she did call, she talked more about Brandon's family's yacht club than her studies. She started criticizing our old apartment when she came home for Christmas. Dad, this place is so small. And the neighborhood, it's not very safe, is it? It's the same neighborhood where you grew up. The same place where I worked 3 jobs to pay for your dreams. I know. I'm grateful. It's just, being around Brandon's family has opened my eyes to different possibilities. By her 3rd year, Rebecca had moved in with Brandon. She assured me it was just to save money on rent. But I noticed she'd started calling herself Becca. Apparently Rebecca was too formal for Brandon's crowd. The financial pressure was crushing me. I'd maxed out every credit card, exhausted every loan option. I was working 4 jobs now: the auto shop, rideshare driving, overnight security, and weekend handyman work. I averaged 4 hours of sleep per night and lived on coffee and stress. My health was deteriorating. I developed chronic back pain from all the physical labor, but I couldn't afford to see a doctor. I had frequent headaches and my hands shook from exhaustion, but I pushed through. Rebecca was in her 3rd year, just 1 more year and she'd graduate, get a residency, and start earning money. During Rebecca's 3rd year, she invited me to have dinner with Brandon's parents when they came to Baltimore. I was nervous but excited. Finally, I'd meet the family of the man my daughter was serious about. I borrowed a suit from my coworker and took a taxi to the expensive restaurant they'd chosen. The Chens were exactly what I'd expected: polished, sophisticated, and clearly wealthy. Dr. Richard Chen wore a watch that probably cost more than I made in 6 months, and Dr. Patricia Chen's handbag was genuine Hermes. "So you're Rebecca's father," Dr. Patricia said, looking me up and down with thinly veiled disapproval. "She's told us so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied, trying to match their polished tone. "She mentioned you work at an auto shop," Dr. Richard said. "Are you the owner?" "I'm a mechanic there. But I also drive rideshare in the evenings and do security work overnight to pay for Rebecca's education." The silence that followed was deafening. The Chens exchanged a look that I couldn't quite interpret. "That's admirable," Dr. Patricia finally said, her voice dripping with condescension. "It must be quite a struggle to afford Johns Hopkins on a mechanic's salary." "It is, but Rebecca's worth every sacrifice. She's going to be an amazing doctor." "Yes, well, we've been thinking about that," Dr. Richard said. "Brandon mentioned that Rebecca might need some financial assistance for her final year. The Chens would be happy to help cover those expenses." My heart stopped. "That's very generous, but I have it handled." "Dad," Rebecca spoke up for the first time, "maybe we should consider their offer. You've done so much already, and the Chens can easily afford." "No." My voice was sharper than I'd intended. "I've gotten you this far, and I'll see you through to graduation. That's what fathers do." Dr. Patricia smiled coldly. "Of course. We wouldn't want to interfere with family dynamics." The dinner ended awkwardly, and I could tell Rebecca was embarrassed by my insistence on maintaining control over her education expenses. But this was my investment in our future together. I wasn't about to let some rich family swoop in and take credit for my years of sacrifice. Rebecca's 4th year nearly killed me. Literally. I was working 80 hours a week across my 4 jobs, sending her $1,500 per month while surviving on less than $800 myself. I'd lost 50 pounds and looked skeletal. My landlord was threatening eviction because I was 3 months behind on rent. Every penny went to Rebecca's education. In February, I collapsed at the auto shop. The paramedics said it was exhaustion and malnutrition. I spent 2 days in the hospital, during which time I racked up $8,000 in medical bills I couldn't pay. The doctors warned me that my body was shutting down, that I needed to reduce my stress and improve my diet. Immediately, I didn't tell Rebecca about the hospitalization. She was studying for her board exams, and I didn't want to distract her. Instead, I took on a 5th job, weekend construction work, to pay the medical bills. "Dad, you sound tired," Rebecca said during one of our increasingly rare phone calls. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just excited about your graduation. Only 3 months left." "About that, Dad. I need to talk to you about graduation." Something in her tone made my blood freeze. "What about it?" "Well, Brandon's family is flying in from California, and they've reserved a whole section at the ceremony. They're hosting a big celebration dinner at the Four Seasons afterward." "That sounds lovely. I can't wait to meet more of his family." "The thing is, Dad, the graduation ceremony has limited seating. Each student only gets 4 tickets." "Okay, so you'll give me one and Brandon will give his family the other 3. "It's not that simple. Brandon's parents, his sister, and his grandmother are all coming. That's 4 people. Right there." My hands started shaking. "Rebecca, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe you could watch the ceremony online instead. They live stream it now. You could have your own little celebration at home." "You want me to watch my daughter's medical school graduation, the graduation I paid $150,000 for, on a computer screen?" "Dad, please don't make this harder than it already is. The Chens have been so good to me, and this is important to Brandon." "What about what's important to me? What about the 4 years I worked myself into the ground to pay for this degree? I know you've sacrificed a lot, and I'm grateful. But the Chens are going to be my family too now." "Going to be?" "Rebecca, I am your family. I'm the only family you've had since you were 8 years old. That's not fair. You can't guilt me about this." "Guilt you? I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm trying to understand how my daughter can exclude the father who gave up everything so she could achieve her dreams." "The decision is made, Dad. I'm sorry." She hung up, and I sat in my tiny, cold apartment, staring at the phone. 4 years of 80-hour work weeks. 4 years of living on scraps while she ate at expensive restaurants with Brandon. 4 years of destroying my health and my financial security. And I was going to watch her graduation on live stream, like some distant acquaintance. I didn't speak to Rebecca for 2 weeks after that conversation. She didn't call either. Finally, my curiosity got the better of me, and I drove to Baltimore to confront her in person. I found her at the apartment she shared with Brandon, packing up her belongings. She looked healthy, well-fed, and radiant, everything I no longer was. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk sense into you. Rebecca, I am not missing your graduation." "Dad, we've been through this." "No, we haven't been through anything. You made a unilateral decision to exclude me from the most important day of your life. The day I made possible." Brandon appeared from the bedroom, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Sullivan, maybe I can help explain." "I don't need you to explain anything. This is between me and my daughter." "Actually," Rebecca said, her voice taking on a cold tone I'd never heard before, "Brandon is part of this family now. We make decisions together." "Family? You want to talk about family?" "Let me tell you about family, Rebecca. Family is working 4 jobs. Until you collapse from exhaustion. Family is living on bologna sandwiches so your daughter can eat real food. Family is taking out loans you'll never be able to repay so your child can follow her dreams. I never asked you to do those things. You didn't have to ask. That's what fathers do. That's what love looks like. Well, maybe your version of love is too suffocating. Maybe I need space to build my own life. The words hit me like a physical blow. Suffocating? Paying for your education is suffocating. It's not just the money, Dad. It's the way you act like you own me because of it. Like I owe you my entire future because you made sacrifices. I don't want to own you. I just want to be part of your life. I want to see you graduate. And you can. On the live stream. Rebecca, listen to me. I have spent $150,000 on your education. I have worked myself into malnutrition and exhaustion. I have destroyed my health and my financial security. And you're telling me I can't even attend your graduation. That's emotional manipulation, Dad. No, that's reality. Those are facts. And the fact is that your boyfriend's family didn't contribute a single penny to your education, but they get front row seats while I get a computer screen. The Chens have been incredibly generous. With what? Dinner invitations? Weekend trips? I've been generous with my life savings. Brandon stepped forward. Mr. Sullivan, I think you're being unfair. My parents have provided Rebecca with emotional support and networking opportunities that will benefit her career. And I've provided her with $150,000 and 4 years of around-the-clock sacrifice. But apparently, that doesn't earn me a seat at her graduation. Dad, the decision is final. I'm sorry you're upset, but this is what's best for everyone. Best for everyone? Or best for your new family? They are my family now. They understand me in ways you never have. Really? Do they understand that you used to dream of taking care of your old father when you became a doctor? Do they understand that you once promised to buy me a house with your first paycheck? Do they understand that you used to say I was your hero? Rebecca's face flushed. People grow up, Dad. They change. Dreams change. Apparently, so does gratitude. I left that day knowing I'd lost my daughter forever. Not to medical school, not to her career, but to people who valued her for what she could do for their son, not for who she was. Graduation day arrived gray and drizzly, which seemed fitting. I sat in my apartment at my rickety kitchen table, laptop open to the Johns Hopkins live stream. I'd bought a small cake from the grocery store and a bottle of cheap beer, trying to create some semblance of celebration. At 2 p.m., the ceremony began. I watched hundreds of young doctors file into the auditorium in their caps and gowns, searching the screen for Rebecca's face. When I finally spotted her, my heart clenched. She looked beautiful, confident, accomplished, everything I'd dreamed she'd become. But she was sitting with the Chen family, not looking for me in the audience because she knew I wasn't there. When they called her name, Dr. Rebecca Sullivan, I started crying. 4 years of sacrifice, 4 years of believing this moment would be ours to share, and I was watching it alone on a pixelated screen while strangers celebrated my achievement. Because it was my achievement too. Every late night I'd worked security shifts, every meal I'd skipped, every bill I'd ignored to pay her tuition, it had all led to this moment. But according to Rebecca, I was too suffocating to witness it in person. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Graduated. Thanks for everything, Dad. We'll call you later. Thanks for everything. Like I was a distant relative who'd sent a graduation card. I closed the laptop and sat in my empty apartment, surrounded by the remnants of 4 years of financial ruin. Past due notices covered my coffee table. My refrigerator contained condiments and little else. My body ached from years of overwork, and my spirit felt broken. The phone call never came. 2 days after graduation, my coworker Jim showed me something that nearly destroyed what was left of my sanity. Rebecca had posted photos from her graduation celebration on Facebook, and I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Photo after photo of Rebecca with the Chen family at an elaborate dinner party. Designer dresses. Expensive champagne, a cake that probably cost more than I spent on food in a month. The captions told a story that made my blood boil. So grateful to the Chens for making this celebration perfect. Brandon's parents have been such an incredible support system throughout medical school. Feeling blessed to have such an amazing second family. But the photo that broke me was Rebecca cutting the cake while Dr. Richard Chen stood beside her like a proud father. The caption read, "Dr. Richard has been such a mentor and father figure. So thankful for his guidance." Father figure. The man who'd done nothing but judge me at dinner had somehow become Rebecca's father figure, while I, the man who'd literally worked himself into the hospital paying for Rebecca's education, was nowhere to be seen. I called Rebecca immediately. "Dad, I was going to call you father figure? You called Dr. Richard Chen a father figure. Dad, please don't read too much into social media posts. Don't read too much into it. Rebecca, I have been your only father for 16 years. I sacrificed everything so you could become a doctor. And you're calling some rich man who bought you dinner a few times your father figure? Dr. Richard has given me career advice and professional connections during a very stressful time. And what do you think I've been giving you? What do you call working 4 jobs to pay your tuition? What do you call destroying my health so you could achieve your dreams? That's different. That's just what fathers do." Exactly. That's what fathers do. But apparently, it doesn't earn the same gratitude as a few fancy dinners. And some career networking. "You're being dramatic, Dad." "Am I?" "You excluded me from your graduation, called another man your father figure, and posted dozens of photos celebrating with everyone except the person who made it all possible. If that's not dramatic enough to justify some hurt feelings, I don't know what is. Look, I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I can't live my entire life trying to repay you. I need to move forward. I'm not asking you to repay me. I'm asking you to acknowledge me, to include me, to treat me like your father instead of some embarrassing burden from your past. I don't think of you as a burden." "Really? Then why wasn't I at your graduation? Why aren't I in any of your celebration photos? Why is Dr. Richard Chen getting credit for being your father figure when I'm the one who actually raised you?" "Dad, I have to go. Brandon and I are looking at apartments for my residency." "Where's your residency?" "San Francisco." Brandon matched at UCSF too. "California. You're moving to California. It's a great opportunity. Brandon's parents have connections there, and they've offered to help us get settled." "What about me, Rebecca? What about taking care of your old father like you used to promise?" "Dad, you're only 61. You'll be fine." "I'll be fine. I'm broke, exhausted, and in debt up to my eyeballs because I spent every penny I had on your education. My health is ruined from working 4 jobs. I have no savings, no retirement fund, nothing. And you're moving across the country with your boyfriend's family. You made those choices, Dad. I never asked you to sacrifice so much. You didn't have to ask. That's what love looks like. But apparently, you wouldn't recognize that. I have to go." She hung up, and I realized that the daughter I'd raised was gone. The little girl who'd promised to take care of me, who'd called me her hero, who'd dreamed of us living in a big house together someday. She'd been replaced by someone who saw my sacrifices as obligations rather than gifts, my love as suffocation rather than devotion. 6 months later, I learned through Jim, who followed Rebecca on social media, that Rebecca and Brandon were engaged. The proposal had happened at a vineyard in Napa Valley, orchestrated by the Chin family. The ring was a family heirloom worth more than I'd ever earn in 5 years. I waited for the phone call. Surely Rebecca would call to share the news with her father. Surely she'd want to include me in wedding planning, ask for my input, at least acknowledge that this was a milestone worth sharing. The call never came. Instead, I saw the engagement photos on Facebook. Rebecca looked radiant in designer clothes, posing with Brandon against a backdrop of rolling hills and expensive wine. The comments were full of congratulations from people whose names I didn't recognize, friends she'd made through Brandon, colleagues from her residency program, members of the Chen family social circle. I wasn't tagged in the announcement. I wasn't mentioned in the captions. I might as well have not existed. I swallowed my pride and called her. Rebecca, I saw the engagement photos. Congratulations. Oh, thanks, Dad. I meant to call you. When's the wedding? Next summer. We're thinking June in Napa Valley. The Chens have connections at some beautiful venues there. That sounds lovely. I can't wait to walk you down the aisle. There was a long pause. Actually, Dad, Dr. Richard has offered to walk me down the aisle. Since, you know, he's been such a father figure and all. My heart shattered. You want another man to walk you down the aisle at your wedding? It's what makes sense. The Chens are paying for the wedding, and Dr. Richard has been so supportive. Supportive. Rebecca, I raised you alone for 16 years. I paid for your entire education. I'm your father. Of course you are. But the Chens are going to be my family too now. How much is the wedding costing? About $80,000. But don't worry, the Chens are happy to cover it. $80,000. More than twice my annual salary. A sum I could never dream of spending on a single day, being casually mentioned like it was nothing. Rebecca, I may not be able to contribute money, but I'd at least like to be there. I'd like to see my daughter get married. About that, Dad, we're trying to keep the guest list small and intimate. Just close family and friends. My stomach dropped. I'd heard this story before. How small? About 150 people. That doesn't sound small to me. Well, it's smaller than what the Chens originally wanted. They know so many people in their social circle. Rebecca, what are you trying to tell me? I'm trying to tell you that we've had to make some difficult decisions about the guest list. We can't invite everyone we'd like to. Are you uninviting me from your wedding? It's not that simple. You don't really know anyone else who'll be there. All of Brandon's family, all of our friends from medical school, everyone from my residency program, they're all part of our current life. You might feel out of place. Are you suggesting I shouldn't come to my own daughter's wedding? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying that it might be awkward for you. Everyone there will be talking about things you don't understand, people you don't know, experiences you haven't shared. Rebecca, I don't care if I don't know anyone. I want to see my daughter get married. Dad, please try to understand. This wedding is costing the Chens $80,000. It's going to be very formal, very elegant. Everyone will be dressed in designer clothes, talking about their careers and their travels. You'd be miserable. Let me get this straight. You think I'd be miserable watching my daughter marry the man she loves? I think you'd be uncomfortable in that environment. What you mean is that you'd be uncomfortable having me in that environment. That's not fair, isn't it? Rebecca, you're ashamed of me. You're ashamed of where you came from, ashamed of the man who sacrificed everything so you could have the life you're living now. I'm not ashamed of you. I'm protecting you. From what? From seeing my daughter happy? From celebrating the achievement that my $150,000 made possible? From feeling out of place in a world you don't understand? The only thing I don't understand is how my daughter became someone who could exclude her father from the most important day of her life. Dad, the decision is made. I'm sorry you're upset, but this is what's best. Best for who? Best for you, or best for your new family who doesn't want any reminders of your humble beginnings? I have to go, Dad. She hung up, and I sat in my apartment, staring at the walls that were closing in around me. First the graduation, now the wedding. Every major milestone in Rebecca's life was being celebrated without the man who'd made it all possible. The wedding was on a Saturday in June. I woke up that morning knowing that 200 miles away, my daughter was getting married, and another man was walking her down the aisle while I sat alone in my apartment. I'd bought a suit anyway. Something modest from the thrift store, but nice enough for a father of the bride. I hung it in my closet and stared at it, imagining what it would have been like to wear it, to walk my daughter down the aisle, to dance with her at the reception. Instead, I made myself coffee and sat at my kitchen table, waiting for the photos to appear on social media. They started posting around 6 p.m. The ceremony looked like something out of a magazine, a vineyard setting with rolling hills in the background, flower arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly rent, a string quartet, designer, everything. Rebecca looked absolutely stunning in a dress that undoubtedly cost more than I'd spent on clothes in the past 5 years. She was radiant, glowing with happiness as she danced with Brandon, as she hugged Dr. Patricia Chen, as she posed with the wedding party. But what broke my heart was seeing Dr. Richard Chen in the photos that should have been mine, walking her down the aisle. The father-daughter dance. The traditional moments where Dr. Richard stood beside her like a proud father. In every photo that mattered, Dr. Richard Chen had taken my place. The captions were even worse. So grateful to my second dad, Dr. Richard, for walking me down the aisle. Dr. Richard has been such an incredible father figure throughout this journey. The Chens didn't just gain a daughter-in-law today, I gained a whole new family. I read that last caption through tears. Rebecca had gained a whole new family and apparently lost her old one in the process. My phone didn't ring. No call from my daughter on her wedding day. No text with a photo. No acknowledgement that the man who'd sacrificed everything for her education even existed. I went to bed that night knowing that I'd officially been replaced. The little girl who used to curl up next to me and promised to take care of me when she became a doctor was gone forever. 2 years passed with minimal contact. Rebecca would call on my birthday and Christmas, brief conversations where she'd update me on her residency and I'd pretend everything was fine. She never visited, never invited me to California, never acknowledged the growing distance between us. Then, last month, I received a birth announcement in the mail. Rebecca and Brandon had had a baby, a little girl named Patricia, after her grandmother, Dr. Patricia Chen. The announcement was formal, impersonal, the kind you'd send to distant relatives or old family friends. There was no personal note, no phone call, no invitation to meet my granddaughter. I stared at the photo of the baby, a beautiful little girl with Rebecca's eyes and Brandon's nose, and realized that this child would grow up never knowing that her maternal grandfather had sacrificed everything so her mother could become a doctor. She'd know Dr. Richard Chen as Grandpa Rick, while I remained a stranger on the other side of the country. I called Rebecca, my hands shaking as I dialed. Dad, I was wondering when you'd call about the baby. She's beautiful, Rebecca. Congratulations. Thank you. We're so happy. Dr. Patricia has been such a help. She's staying with us for 2 weeks to help with the transition. Of course she was. Dr. Patricia was there for every milestone while I learned about them through birth announcements and social media posts. I'd love to meet my granddaughter. That would be nice. Maybe when she's older and can travel better. Or I could come to California. I could help with the baby, fix things around the house, whatever you need. That's sweet, Dad, but we have everything under control. Dr. Richard has been helping with home repairs, and Brandon's sister is coming next month. Plus, I'm only taking a few months off for maternity leave. Rebecca, this is my granddaughter. Don't you think I should meet her? Of course you should. Eventually. But right now, we need people who can actually help, and you don't really know anything about babies. I raised you, didn't I? That was different. You were young then, and it was just the two of us. Now we have a whole support system. A support system that didn't include me. What's her middle name? I asked, trying to find some connection to this child. Patricia Michelle Chin Sullivan. My heart stopped. Michelle? You gave her my mother's name as a middle name. I wanted to honor family tradition. Grandma Michelle would have loved her. But you named her Patricia first. After Dr. Patricia Chen. She's been such an important part of my life, Dad. And Patricia is a beautiful name. So my granddaughter is named after the woman who replaced me as her grandmother, with my mother's name as an afterthought. Dad, please don't make this about you. How is this not about me? I'm her grandfather. I should be there teaching her how to fix things, showing her how engines work, spoiling her rotten. Instead, I'm learning about her existence through a birth announcement and hearing about Dr. Richard doing all the things I should be doing. You live across the country. Dr. Richard lives 20 minutes away. I could move to California. I could find work there, be close to my granddaughter. Dad, that's not practical. You don't have any connections there, any job prospects. And honestly, we're building our life here with Brandon's family. It might be confusing for the baby to have too many grandfather figures. Too many grandfather figures? I'm her actual grandfather. And Dr. Richard is like a grandfather to me, which makes him like a grandfather to the baby too. He's not like anything, Rebecca. I'm your father. I'm the one who raised you, who paid for your education, who sacrificed everything so you could have the life you're living now. Dr. Richard Chen bought you dinner a few times and suddenly he's family. Dad, I can't keep having this conversation with you. You're being jealous and petty. I'm being a father who's been systematically excluded from every important moment in his daughter's life. That's not true, isn't it? Your graduation, your wedding, the birth of your child. I've experienced all of them from a distance while Dr. Richard Chen gets to be there for everything. Tell me how that's not exclusion. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. And the honest truth is that you've replaced me with a richer, more sophisticated version. Someone who fits into your new life better than the working-class father who actually earned his place there. I have to go, Dad. The baby's crying. She hung up, and I knew it would be the last time we'd speak for a very long time. I sat in my apartment, holding the birth announcement, and made a decision that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago. I wasn't going to chase my daughter anymore. I wasn't going to beg for scraps of attention or fight for a place in her life that she'd clearly decided I didn't deserve. If Rebecca wanted Dr. Richard Chen to be her father figure, to walk her down the aisle, to be her baby's primary grandfather, then so be it. But she couldn't have both. She couldn't keep me on the sidelines as backup emotional support while giving all the meaningful moments to someone else. I put the birth announcement in a drawer and didn't look at it again. 3 months after baby Patricia was born, I received a phone call that changed everything. Is this Michael Sullivan? Yes. Who's calling? This is David Kim from Chen and Associates Financial Recovery. I'm calling about Dr. Rebecca Sullivan's outstanding medical school loans. My blood ran cold. What about them? According to our records, Dr. Sullivan has defaulted on her private student loan payments. The total amount owed is $180,000, including interest and penalties. We've been unable to reach her at her listed phone number. I don't understand. What does this have to do with me? You're listed as the co-signer on these loans, Mr. Sullivan. That makes you equally responsible for the debt. The world started spinning. That's impossible. I never co-signed any loans. I'm looking at the paperwork right now. Your signature is on file for 3 separate loans taken out between 2019 and 2022. Did you not sign these documents? My mind raced back to Rebecca's medical school years. There had been so many papers to sign, so many financial documents. Rebecca had told me some were for financial aid applications, others for housing contracts. I'd signed whatever she put in front of me, trusting my daughter completely. Sir, I think there's been a mistake. I paid for my daughter's medical school myself. I never took out loans. Mr. Sullivan, these loans were taken out in addition to whatever other payments you made. According to our records, Dr. Sullivan has been making minimum payments throughout medical school and her residency, but she stopped paying 3 months ago. 3 months ago. Right when the baby was born. Right when she'd started her new life with Brandon and his family's financial support. What happens if the loans aren't paid? As the co-signer, you become responsible for the full amount. We can garnish your wages, place liens on your property, and pursue other legal remedies to recover the debt. I don't have $180,000. I don't have $18,000. I can barely pay my rent. I understand this is difficult, Mr. Sullivan. I'd recommend contacting Dr. Sullivan immediately to discuss payment arrangements. The longer this goes unpaid, the more the penalties will accumulate. After he hung up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the phone. Rebecca had not only excluded me from her life, she'd also secretly saddled me with massive debt, while I'd been working myself to death to pay her expenses directly. She'd been taking out loans in both our names to cover additional costs. I called Rebecca immediately. Dad, I can't talk right now. The baby's fussy and... Rebecca, I just got a call from a debt collector. They say I owe $180,000 in student loans that I co-signed for you. The silence on the other end was deafening. Rebecca? Are you there? Dad, I can explain. You better start explaining right now. The money you were sending wasn't enough to cover everything. Tuition, books, housing, food, transportation, medical expenses. It all added up to more than what you could provide. So I took out some supplemental loans. Some supplemental loans? $180,000 worth. I needed the money, Dad. Medical school is expensive. I gave you $150,000. What did you spend the loan money on? Living expenses, study materials, equipment, normal medical school costs. Living expenses like moving in with Brandon? Like designer clothes for dinner with his parents? Like spring break trips to Europe? Those things were important for my networking and professional development. Your networking. Rebecca, I co-signed for $180,000 in loans so you could network with rich people. You don't understand the medical field, Dad. Relationships matter. Connections matter. And what about your connection to me? What about your responsibility to the father who's now legally obligated to pay back money you borrowed to fund your social climbing? I've been making the payments. Not anymore, you haven't. They said you stopped paying 3 months ago. Things have been tight since the baby was born. Brandon's still in residency, and I'm on maternity leave. We don't have extra money right now. But the Chens do. The people who paid for your $80,000 wedding surely have $180,000 to help their son's wife with her student loans. I can't ask them for that much money. But you can stick your father with the bill? Dad, I always plan to pay the loans back myself once I finish residency and start making real money. When will that be? 2 more years for Brandon, 3 more for me. Rebecca, I'm 61 years old. I make $35,000 a year. I cannot afford $180,000 in debt payments while you spend 3 more years playing house with Brandon's family. I'll figure something out. You'll figure something out? That's your solution? Rebecca, they can garnish my wages. They can take my apartment. They can destroy what's left of my financial life. That won't happen. I won't let it happen. How are you going to stop it? You just told me you don't have any money and you can't ask the Chens for help. I don't know yet. But I'll figure it out. Just like you figured out how to exclude me from your graduation and your wedding? Just like you figured out how to replace me with Dr. Richard Chen. Dad, this is different. No, Rebecca, this is exactly the same. This is you using me for what you need and then discarding me when it's convenient. Except this time, you can't just hang up the phone and pretend I don't exist. This time, your choices have legal consequences for me. What do you want me to do? I want you to take responsibility for your debt. I want you to contact the loan company and remove me as co-signer. I want you to stop treating me like your personal ATM and backup plan. I can't remove you as co-signer without paying off the loans. Then figure out how to pay them off. Ask your precious Dr. Richard Chen. Ask the people who supposedly love you so much that they replaced your actual father. Dad, please. No, Rebecca. I'm done. I'm done being used by you. I'm done being treated as less important than people who contributed nothing to your success. I'm done sacrificing my financial security for someone who sees me as an embarrassment. You're my father. You can't just abandon me. I'm not abandoning you. I'm protecting myself from you. There's a difference. I hung up and immediately called a bankruptcy attorney. The attorney, Patricia Walsh, the irony of her name wasn't lost on me, was straightforward about my options. Mr. Sullivan, as a co-signer, you're legally responsible for these debts whether you knew the full scope of them or not. Your daughter essentially used your credit and your signature to fund a lifestyle you couldn't afford to give her directly. Can I get out of the co-signer obligation? Not without paying the debt in full or proving fraud. Did your daughter misrepresent what you were signing? I thought back to all those documents Rebecca had put in front of me over the years. She told me they were financial aid applications and housing contracts. I trusted her. That might constitute fraud, but it would be difficult to prove unless you have written evidence that she deliberately misled you about the nature of the documents. So I'm stuck with $180,000 in debt for someone who won't even let me meet my granddaughter? I'm afraid so. However, we can explore bankruptcy options to protect your assets and income. What would that mean? Chapter 7 bankruptcy would discharge most of your debts, including these student loans in some cases. You'd lose any significant assets, but it would give you a fresh start. What about my apartment? You're renting, so that wouldn't be affected. Your income is low enough that you'd likely qualify for a full discharge. And Rebecca? The debt would revert entirely to her. She'd be responsible for the full amount without you as backup. It felt like the first good news I'd heard in months. Over the next 6 weeks, I gathered all the financial documents from Rebecca's medical school years. What I discovered made me sick to my stomach. While I'd been sending her money for tuition and basic living expenses, she'd been using the loan money for luxury items and experiences. Credit card statements showed charges at expensive restaurants, designer clothing stores, jewelry shops. There were payments for a trip to Paris during her 3rd year that she'd told me was a medical conference. There were charges for a $5,000 Rolex she'd bought Brandon for his birthday. She'd literally used my credit to fund a lifestyle that was completely beyond my means, all while I was working myself into the hospital to cover her basic expenses. When I called Rebecca to confront her with this evidence, she didn't deny it. "Dad, I needed those things. I was trying to fit in with Brandon's crowd." "You needed a $5,000 watch for your boyfriend? You needed a trip to Paris to fit in. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Everyone around me came from money. I felt like a fraud. So you decided to become an actual fraud instead?" "I was going to pay it all back once I started practicing medicine." "With what money, Rebecca? Even after you finish residency, you'll be making maybe $200,000 a year. After taxes and living expenses, how long do you think it would take you to pay back $180,000 plus interest?" "I don't know. I didn't think about it that carefully." "You didn't think about it at all. You saw my signature as a blank check to fund whatever lifestyle you wanted. What are you going to do?" "I'm filing for bankruptcy. The debt is going back to you, where it belonged in the first place." "Dad, you can't do that. It'll ruin my credit. Brandon and I want to buy a house." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you spent $180,000 of borrowed money on luxuries. The Chens will never accept me if they find out about this debt. Then I guess you'll finally understand what it feels like to be judged by people whose opinion you value." "Dad, please. There has to be another way." "There is. You can take responsibility for your choices. You can contact the loan company and work out a payment plan. You can ask the Chens for help since they're so important to you." "I can't ask them for that much money." "But you can stick your father with it. That's different. Your family." "Exactly, Rebecca. I'm family. And you've treated me worse than you'd treat a stranger. You've used me, excluded me, and replaced me. And now you want me to protect you from the consequences of your own financial irresponsibility. If you file for bankruptcy, it'll destroy my relationship with Brandon's family." "Good. Maybe then you'll understand what it felt like when you destroyed our relationship for the sake of their approval." I filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy 3 days before Christmas. It was the best present I could have given myself. Within 60 days, I was free of the $180,000 debt, along with the credit card debt I'd accumulated trying to keep up with Rebecca's expenses and my own living costs. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't drowning in financial obligations. Rebecca called me crying when she received notice that the loans had reverted to her sole responsibility. "Dad, they're demanding $2,000 a month in payments. I can't afford that on a resident's salary." "Then you'll have to make some sacrifices. Maybe move out of your expensive apartment. Maybe sell some of those designer clothes you bought with loan money. Maybe ask your precious second family for help." "I can't tell the Chens about this. They'll think I'm a financial disaster." "You are a financial disaster, Rebecca. You spent $180,000 you didn't have on things you didn't need to impress people who apparently only like you when you're pretending to be something you're not." "What am I supposed to do?" "What everyone else does when they have debt. You make payments. You live within your means. You take responsibility for your choices. But this will take years to pay off." "Yes, it will. Just like it took me years of working multiple jobs to pay for your education. The difference is, I did it out of love. You'll be doing it because you have to. I hate you. The words should have hurt, but they didn't. I'd already grieved the loss of my relationship with Rebecca. Her hatred was just confirmation that I'd made the right choice in protecting myself. I know you do. But you hated me long before this bankruptcy, Rebecca. You hated me when you excluded me from your graduation. You hated me when you uninvited me from your wedding. You hated me when you replaced me with Dr. Richard Chen. The only difference now is that you're being honest about it. You've ruined my life. No, sweetheart. I gave you life. I gave you opportunities. I gave you an education. I gave you everything I had. You ruined your own life by being ungrateful and irresponsible. But that's not my problem anymore. She hung up, and I felt lighter than I'd felt in years. 2 years have passed since the bankruptcy, and my life has completely transformed. Without the crushing debt and constant financial stress, I was able to focus on rebuilding my health and my happiness. I quit 3 of my 4 jobs and kept only my position at the auto shop. I started eating regular meals again, gained back some of the weight I'd lost, and began taking care of myself. I moved to a small town outside the city where the cost of living was lower and the pace of life was slower. I rented a little house with a garage where I can work on cars as a hobby, something I'd never had time for when I was working 4 jobs to support Rebecca's dreams. I joined a classic car club, took up fishing, and started volunteering at the local high school teaching kids basic auto maintenance. For the first time in decades, I had friends who knew me as Michael, not as Rebecca's father who works so hard to pay for medical school. These friends don't know about my daughter the doctor unless I choose to tell them. They like me for who I am, not for what I can provide or what my child has accomplished. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Rebecca and Brandon finished their residencies and moved back to California, where Brandon's parents helped them buy a house. Rebecca started her practice and is apparently doing very well financially now that she's an attending physician. The student loan debt is still hanging over her head though. According to social media posts I occasionally see, she and Brandon are focusing on paying down debt before expanding their family. Seems baby Patricia will remain an only child for the foreseeable future while her parents deal with the consequences of their financial choices. Dr. Richard Chen still appears in all the family photos, still gets called Grandpa Rick by my granddaughter, still gets credit for being Rebecca's second father. But I notice that the posts have become less frequent, and Rebecca looks stressed in recent photos. I wonder if the financial pressure is causing problems in her marriage. I wonder if Brandon's family is less supportive now that Rebecca comes with significant debt. I wonder if she's finally learning that relationships based on money and social status are fragile things. But mostly, I don't wonder about her at all. I've built a life that doesn't revolve around Rebecca's approval or her presence. I've learned to find joy in my own accomplishments, my own relationships, my own daily experiences. Last month, I received a card in the mail for my 65th birthday. It was from Rebecca, with a photo of 3-year-old Patricia inside. The little girl is beautiful, with Rebecca's smile and Brandon's eyes. The card simply said, "Happy birthday, Dad. Patricia is learning to write and wanted to send you a drawing." Inside was a crayon drawing of what might have been a car or a truck. It was hard to tell. But at the bottom, in shaky toddler handwriting, were the words, "Love Grandpa." I put the card on my refrigerator, not because I'm ready to forgive Rebecca, but because Patricia is innocent in all of this. Someday, when she's older, she might seek me out. She might want to know her other grandfather, the one who sacrificed everything so her mother could become a doctor. And if that day comes, I'll be here, in my little house with my garage and my cars and my peaceful life. I'll tell her the truth about her mother's journey to becoming a doctor, about the sacrifices that made it possible, and about the choices that led to our estrangement. But I won't be bitter when I tell that story. I'll simply tell her the truth, that love sometimes means letting go, that respect must be earned and maintained, and that some bridges, once burned, are meant to stay. That way. I paid $150,000 for Rebecca's medical education and got nothing in return but heartbreak and debt. But in losing her, I found myself. I learned that my worth isn't tied to my usefulness to others, that my happiness doesn't depend on my daughter's approval, and that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the natural consequences of their own choices. Rebecca is Dr. Rebecca Sullivan now, successful and accomplished, just as I always dreamed she'd be. But she's also someone who learned that money and status matter more than loyalty and gratitude. She's someone who can discard the people who love her most when they no longer serve her purposes. That's not the daughter I raised, but it's the woman she chose to become. And I'm finally at peace with the fact that her choices are not my responsibility. I'm 65 years old, debt-free, and surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. I have a garage full of cars I'm restoring, a tackle box full of fishing gear, and friends who call me just to chat. It's not the life I planned when I was working 4 jobs to pay for medical school tuition. But it's a good life, an honest life, a life built on truth rather than manipulation. And unlike the relationships Rebecca has built with people who only love her when she's useful to them, the relationships in my new life are genuine. They're based on mutual respect, shared interests, and authentic connection rather than financial obligation or social climbing. I may have lost a daughter, but I gained something more valuable: my self-respect, my independence, and my peace of mind. Some prices are too high to pay, even for love. And some lessons can only be learned when the bill finally comes due.